Alright, welcome back. This is should be one of my last videos. We're going to go over a list of tones here. You want to make sure that you take notes on these tones, get them written down. I'm going to try to give you some definitions for a few of them. You may have to pause this video a few times. You may have to re-show this video a few times. I didn't want to just print out the list of tones for you because I wanted you to get used to writing them down. I wanted to help you get used to writing the definitions to go with them. I want you to do some of the grind work on this because it will help you to remember these words. Whether we like it or not, it does in fact help us to remember stuff when we write it down. So we're going to go through this. I'm going to give you this list. Some of these words I'm going to give you definitions for, some I'm not. I just don't want to take up that much time with this video, and honestly, there's a couple of these words I don't know the meanings to. Not every word that I don't give you a definition to, though, I don't know a meaning to. We'll just leave it at that. So, these are, and some of these words I'm going to tell you not to write down because they're not worth it, okay? And we'll just leave that there, too. So, aggravated. That's a pretty obvious meaning, right? You know, somebody's aggravated, they're annoyed, ticked off. Aggressive, right? If somebody's being really aggressive, they're pushing really hard towards something, they're trying to force it on you, right? They're being very aggressive in terms of the way that they are approaching what they're saying. If an author is agitated, again, that's kind of like aggravated. They're a little bit annoyed. Somebody's bugging them a little bit. If they are an agreeable author, now these are the interesting ones because these are the ones that like try to make everybody happy, right? So if you're an agreeable author, it means you try to make everybody happy. If you're alarmed, then you have this sense of like fear for whatever the situation is that you're addressing. A lot of our politicians, when they talk as if they are alarmed about the future of our country and how the whole country is going to fall apart and how the whole world's going to fall apart, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, they all do it, right? They all talk as if they are alarmed and they have an alarmed tone. You got the word elusive. Honestly, I don't know the meanings of that word, but I imagine that if you can look up that definition, it's going to be worthwhile. But I don't have the time to keep going through that, so we're not going to do so. Amiable, another great one. Angry, I want to get rid of angry. Angry is not worth discussing, honestly. I'd rather use words like aggressive or perturbed or something along those lines, right? Like just words that are a little bit larger in terms of their meaning. But if you have to use angry, you can't think of anything else, fine. But you got to get used to using bigger words. You just have to. Apathetic, right? You just don't care. Apologetic, right? Arrogant. You know a bunch of these words. Artificial. Artificial is a great one. Audacious. Right? Does somebody have the audacity to say something, right? Like you have the nerve to say it. They're being audacious. They're saying something that typically just isn't said. Authoritative, right? When you speak, are you authoritative on a matter? Do you have the right to say something, right? Baffled, confused, banal, bantering, benevolent. Again, I'm not giving you the definitions to some of these words. Some of them I know the definitions, some I don't. Regardless, I want you to do some legwork in looking up definitions. There is a collegiate dictionary over by the door that has a bunch of these words in it. Use that if you need to. Use dictionary.com on my laptop if you need to. Look them up outside of class if you need to. Bewildered, bitter, bleak, bored, boring, burlesque, calm. Don't use calm. Calm is not worth it. Use something more along the lines of like peaceful or maybe something like that. Candid, just very honest, right? Caustic, cautious, chaotic, chauvinistic, cheerful, childish, clinical. Clinical is a good one, especially if, like, I don't like the word serious, so don't say that in a serious tone, but if they use, just a lot of facts and details, and they use a lot of, very scientific language, the word clinical is great for that. We kind of tend to that, it's a very clinical tone. Colloquial, we talked about colloquialisms in class, go back and look at your notes. Complacent, it's kind of like not caring, but it's not in a negative manner per se. Complimentary, obvious. Concerned, condescending, confident, confused. If there's an author whose text you're reading and the author sounds confused in it, I would be shocked. That won't happen very often. Consoling, contemptuous. Contemptuous is a great word. Put a star beside it. If you can find an author who is contemptuous, that's bonus. Convincing, critical, contentious, contented. I don't like contented, just say content there. Critical, curious, cynical. Cynical means they think that, everyone's out to get them, everything's going to fail and fall apart. Dejected and depressed, they're kind of like the same word. Desperate, detached, just not caring, being separate, seeing it as like this thing that's not really affecting them. Determined, didactic. Didactic is kind of, educational in a sense. Diffident, disbelief. Okay. I told you may need to go back and watch this thing a few times, or pause it every so often, try to get some of those definitions that I haven't given you. See if you can come up with some of these as a class, right? I think that'll be helpful for you. So this is my list of tones. Hold on, I'm scrolling to the top here. All right, discouraged, disdainful, right? Just really hating somebody. Disgusted, disheartened, disinterested, disturbed. Disinterested means you're not interested, obviously. Dominating, right? Very controlling. Domineering, very similar to dominating. I think domineering is a better word than dominating, so if you get the chance, go for it. Dramatic, dreamy, dramatic and dreamy. Dramatic's not really worth it. Dreamy is an interesting one. If somebody is being really romantic and thinking about somebody as if they are this idol to be worshipped, you can be very dreamy, or you have these hopes and dreams about a situation that may come to pass. Ecstatic, effusive, elated, elegiac, embarrassed, encouraging, enthusiastic, envious. Envious is good if somebody is really jealous of somebody else and what they have and wanting it really badly. You'll see that every so often. Euphoric, that's a good one. Evil, get rid of evil. We don't call an author evil unless you're reading a text by Hitler, but even so, he's not going to use an evil tone when he talks, right? You just might consider him evil in a sense. I don't know. You have to decide for yourself. Explosive. Now we're talking about an explosive tone, so they're just very loud and bold and in your face, but it also conveys a sense of anger at the same time, right? We have some very explosive presidential candidates right now. Exuberant, facetious, factual. Facetious is kind of the same thing as sarcastic, just not necessarily in a mean manner per se. You make a face joke, your face, right? That's, ironically the word face is in the word facetious. But a face joke is not meant to be mean unless you're literally trying to insult somebody's face. It's just like a silly gesture, or you know. But sarcasm usually has intent to hurt in some form. Factual, very fact-oriented. Don't use clinical, don't use factual. You can scratch factual out of there. I don't like that at all. Fanciful is kind of like dreamy in a sense, except more elegant. Fearful, flippant. Flippant is a great one if you get a chance to use it. Frantic, friendly, frightened, frivolous, furious, gentle, giddy. Get rid of happy. Happy is not worth it. Just scratch it off. I know everybody's like, you're thinking about the song. I'm so happy, right? But no, we're not going to sing. Not the time to sing. Scratch happy off this list. We are not happy people. Move on. Harsh. Yeah, harsh is an okay one. It's not a strong tone, but it's okay. Haughty is a great one, right? If you come across somebody who's really arrogant and stuck up in their tone when they're writing, feel free to use the word haughty. You sound really intelligent. It's a great choice of word. Hollow. A hollow tone, I don't know that I would say that somebody has a hollow tone. I might scratch this off my tones list, but I try to learn the word. Because hollow is when somebody gives an argument, but they really don't support it with much of anything, so they have a very hollow argument. It lacks support. Humble, humorous, hypnotic, hypocritical. Hypnotic is an interesting one. I just think about hypnotic because it's like, well, if you're reading it and it's mesmerizing you, like very repetitive, lots of repetition, in order to try to convince you of something, you might suggest that they have a hypnotic tone about the writing. But I'd be careful to use that just because an author uses repetition, because hypnotic also has this sense of mystery to it as well, right? Hypocritical, impartial. I wouldn't say that hypocritical is a tone so much as it's a way of being, right? If an author says one thing as their main idea, but then they say something completely opposite as a supporting idea, that would be considered hypocritical. Impartial, impatient, impious, impotent, meaning they lack power when they talk. Incisive, indignant, inflammatory. We have lots of inflammatory presidential candidates on both sides of the aisle. Informative. Informative is okay. I like the word clinical, but that's usually going to be scientific. Informative lacks the scientific element. Most authors will not use an informative tone. They'll have some kind of tone behind what they say. Informative kind of has this idea of lack of tone. Innocent, insipid, insolent, inventive, ironic, irrational. I wouldn't use an ironic tone. I wouldn't call it ironic. Ironic is more of a strategy. Right? They have a sense of irony. All right, there's that. Now we're going to go up to the top of our last list here. Oh, no, there's two more lists. I'm sorry. Irreverent. I know, major letdown. Okay. Irreverent. Irritated. Irreverent's a good one. You know, you just don't have any respect for something. Do they have an irreverent tone? That means they don't respect whatever the issue is they're talking about. Jealous. Joyful. Get rid of joyful. It's not worth it. Laconic. Learned. Not learned, but learned. It means that they have a very smart sounding tone to them. Not necessarily clinical per se, it might not be scientific. Lethargic, lonely, loud and lonely, loving. Get rid of loud, not worth it. You got some other words that are better than that. Lugubrious, I like it. Majestic, malicious, manipulative, meek, melancholy. All of those are great. Miserable, moralistic, right? Somebody's talking about really pays a lot of attention to ethics or morality in the writing, right? Use moralistic. Morose, mystical. Mystical's okay. Nervous, obnoxious, obsessive, outraged. No, outraged is okay. It's probably not your best. There's better words here than that. Overwhelmed, paranoid. Passionate, passive, patronizing, peaceful. Get rid of peaceful, not really worth it. Pedantic, persuasive. Persuasive is not really a tone, get rid of that. Perturbed, petty, petulant, pitiful, pleading. Pleasant, get rid of pleasant, not worth it. Presumptuous, pretentious. Don't use the word proud. No, proud is okay, just as long as you don't use proud when you should be using something like arrogant, right? Because proud can be a positive thing, so if you're talking about it in a positive manner, use the word proud. If you're not, go with arrogant or one of those other words that means the same thing. Questioning is not really a good tone. It's more of a way of being when you're writing. Remote, restrained, revengeful, rude. Get rid of rude, get rid of sad, not worth it. Morose is better than sad. Sarcastic, sardonic, satiric. Right, we've talked about satire. Scornful, seductive, sentimental, serious. Get rid of serious. Never use serious. Serious is used way too much. Don't use serious, don't use sad, don't use happy, don't use mad or angry. Those are all just, you sound like you're in elementary school when you say that somebody has those tones. Sharp. Sharp is not a good tone. Don't use it. Shocked, yeah, that's okay. Alright, this is in fact the last line. It's a lot shorter than the other three were. Shrewd is great. Somber, soothing. Soothing is a weird tone, unless somebody's trying to make you feel better. Which, with Abigail Adams, she did sort of have a soothing tone to the way she talked, so that could be helpful, right? In parts of her letter. Stern, strong, don't use strong, not really good tone. Sultry, superior, superiority, a superior tone, don't use that, go with arrogant, I like it better. Superior is okay, it's just not your strongest way of approaching it. Surprised, surreptitious, sweet, get rid of sweet. Sympathetic's a good one. Taunting, threatening, timid, tired, turgid, urgent, vengeful, vexed, vibrant, vicious, vindictive, violent, weary, whimsical. Whimsical's like dreamy, right? Wrathful, zealous. All right, so any of those are going to be pretty good. I just went through a whole slew of tones with you. I told you to get rid of some of them. I told you the definitions for some and not for a bunch of the others. I really want you to look up some of these definitions. I don't know what words you do and don't know, and honestly, we don't have time to go through the definitions for all of these. Go home, write them down, do it as a class if you want to do it as a class. Pause this, go back and rewatch this entire thing if you need to. Pause it when you get to different sections. But we need to have all these tones written down. You need to have definitions for them, know how to use them in a sentence. If you can come up with examples for each tone, go for it. I think that's that much better, that much greater. So, and then the last thing I want to say is I've kind of gone through all the videos at this point. You may have watched this last, you may have watched this earlier on. I don't know. Hopefully you watched it last. But what I want to remind you of is get your rewrites done. All right. I am still checking my email. I'm still willing to check them. If you turn a rewrite in class, okay, either give it to the sub or put it in the top of the plastic box over there by the door. She'll grab it and she'll take those up to the front office. Miss Rose is going to scan those in to her computer and she's going to email them to me. Okay, I'm still going to check them and I will respond and I will send her my responses, and Miss Rose will get that information to you through the substitute. But we're gonna relay these things back and forth. I want to be checking papers. The only way for you to grow at this point is to continue to write. And with rhetorical analysis having so many steps involved and pieces that you have not played with yet, you've got to get used to this. Honestly, the writing style and structure is very similar to the synthesis and the argument that we've covered already, right? It's got the basic structure, introduction, bodies, conclusion. Get a thesis statement in there unless you're using chronological analysis too, option 2, right? Get your supporting ideas as your body paragraphs. If it's option 1, they're actually strategies for your subtopics. If it's option 2, it's sections of the paper for your body paragraphs. For your evidences, right? You got supporting ideas, you have evidences to support those and back them up. And then you have to explain your evidences, right? So it's a very similar structure to what you've seen in your other 2 styles of writing. All essays use the same basic essay structure, even in history, even though, bear with me, even though it requires slight differences, right? In an argumentative essay, the evidences are come up with on your own. In a synthesis essay, you're given sources and you're told to pull evidences out of those. In a rhetorical analysis, you're told to pull quotes, examples of strategies used within the rhetorical analysis, right? In a DBQ, you might create an argument to begin with, but then you're doing a lot of analysis of sources, and this is for those A-push students in my class. You're doing a lot of analysis of sources and explaining them and how they tie into your initial argument. So it's kind of like a combination between like a synthesis essay and a rhetorical analysis essay, like kind of mixed together in a sense. And Ms. Pearson's better at explaining that than I am. But you'll still note that you still got your thesis, you still got your subtopics, you still need to have your evidences, and you still have to explain your evidences, right? And it's going to be that way for the rest of your life with any other essay that you write. Get used to it. I hope y'all are well. Feel free to email me. I am making myself available to you. Baby will probably wake up every few hours. I'll be awake sometimes while baby's awake. I'll be asleep sometimes while baby's asleep. And while I'm awake, I'm going to pull up my emails. I'm going to be checking them. I'm going to be sending you guys some responses. I'm telling you, and I've told you this since the beginning of the school year, you are my priority, and you have to recognize that you have so much potential. You guys have grown so much, even though you may or may not have seen it on the midterm. Part of it was that first prompt, especially on the creativity class, you weren't writing bad. Your structure was excellent. The biggest issues were going to be just missing the point of the prompt, right? And so we just got to get better at reading prompts, and we'll do some more of that in review. But what I have seen from you as a class has been amazing. You guys have to pat yourselves on the back, and you have to believe in yourselves. Spring break is over now, and you're all groaning and moaning at this point, and I recognize that, and I am too. I understand. I understand better than many, right? Spring break is over, and my schedule right now is taking care of baby, helping you guys, and doing work for Campbell all at the same time. And trying to get ready to start to do my work up in Elon. So I want you guys to know, this is the time of the year where we have to push. We have to run with everything we have. We have to come here to the end and we say, we've got about 1 month left to run as hard as we can possibly run and succeed. If I just say, at this point I'm hitting this wall, I'm just going to quit, we're not going to be able to succeed at all. But I would venture to say that most of you are on the verge of breaking through that wall and coming out on the other side with a lot of success. Step up your game at this point. Don't slack off. You got to do the opposite. You have to wage war against that piece of you that says, I want to catch senioritis my junior year. It's not worth it. It is not worth it. And I know what you guys are capable of. You are wonderful, incredible students, intelligent, hardworking students, people with so much value and strength to you. And you have to know who you are. What is your definition? And I'm telling you right now that you were created for greatness and productivity. And there is nothing more valuable that you can do than to produce and to multiply in this world, to create excellence, right? To reflect what it is you've been created for. You are incredible people. Here we are at the end. Step into your potential. Step up your game. Let's make it happen. And I will be here with you every step of the way, cheering you on, because you need somebody cheering for you. We all do. All right. Well, I hope you're doing well. We'll talk to you later, and have fun with the rest of the work that y'all are doing. All right. Bye.